It is the Final Word Daily, Day 5 of the Men's T20 World Cup. Adam Collins with you, Daniel Norcross with me. It was the Sheikh Zayed Stadium doubleheader at Abu Dhabi today. Daniel, England were in action in the first game. Tell us about it in 30 seconds.
Well, Bangladesh obliged Eoin Morgan by winning the toss and batting, and then promptly lost the match in the power play as England adopted the rather recherche tactics of only using 2 bowlers in the first 6 overs. Moeen Ali and Chris Woakes, neither of whom were in England's full-strength side in India earlier this year in March, reduced the Tigers to 27 for 3, and some ineffectual fiddling took Bangladesh to a woefully underpowered 124 for 9, as Timal Mills and Liam Livingstone got 5 wickets between them. England never looked in trouble in the chase as the left-arm matchups that were supposed to be so devilishly difficult for Jason Roy failed to deliver. He thwacked a 38 balls 61. England cruised to victory with 35 balls to spare. It was, frankly, quite a dreary spectacle for the neutral. But for England, they'll be absolutely delighted.
They're home by 8 wickets. They're 2 for 2 so far. Bangladesh are very much struggling in this competition. That was the case at different times in the qualifier, and they're 0 and 2 in the Super 12s as well. Let's start with Chris Woakes, who took 1 for 12 from his 4 overs. He wasn't part of England's T20 calculations until about 5 minutes before the World Cup. Got himself into this squad on the back of some good form against Sri Lanka during the English summer. Got back after injury thereafter, played in the final test, what became the final test of the summer against India. And now it feels as though right now, alongside Timal Mills, he's one of England's 2 most important seamers.
Well, yeah, and actually there are very good reasons for it. So since he's come back into the side, he's bowled, I believe, 13 overs and taken 3 for 47 in T20 cricket, but it actually is very similar to his numbers in the power play in 50-over cricket. So he bowls basically the same deliveries as he does in 50-over cricket. 50-over cricket, he might have a slip in for a little bit longer, but the way he's bowling is almost identical. Maybe it's because his pitches are working for him with that style, but it's actually not a great surprise to me. A bigger surprise was to see people speculating that when Mark Wood is fit, that Woakes might be the man to perhaps make way. You'd have thought, actually, on the basis of what we've seen so far, it would be Chris Jordan. And just to sort of cement this point about England changing up their World Cup bowling attack, they've done this many times before. They've come into a World Cup with an entirely different side, but it's always been a disaster. On this occasion, they had 4 bowlers today, Woakes, Moeen Ali, Liam Livingstone, Timal Mills. Between them, in 14 overs, they took 8 for 72. While actually, the 2 guys who have been inked into England's plans for almost a decade, really, Adil Rashid and Chris Jordan, took none for 50 from 6. So it's a rare example of England changing their plans before a World Cup and it working, but actually, it kind of makes sense. Do you get what I mean when you look at the lengths that Woakes is bowling? He's bowling a 50-over length, and it's working in 2020.
Yeah, I think that's right. He complements the other bowlers so well because Mills has returned to this team as your more back-of-a-length operator, far quicker than Woakes, bowling in the middle overs. You don't need him up front. He bowls at the death, bowls in the middle. I mean, Rashid bowled at the death today. It almost felt like just because why not? Just because, we might as well give him a role there in much the same way that Rashid bowled in the power play in the bilateral series against India going back to February and March this year. Eoin Morgan just likes to keep mixing it up, and they got hold of Rashid in the penultimate over of the innings, but the damage was done with the ball earlier on. Moeen Ali, who again, he wasn't in England's first 11 in this format of the game until very recently, which is weird considering how much he's played for his country. He was captain against Australia last year when Eoin Morgan was out of the team. But bowling right off the top, 2 wickets again today, 2 in the first game against the West Indies. We think of him primarily, I suppose, as a batting all-rounder in T20 calculations, but off the top, ripping it hard off that index finger, he's doing a job right now.
He really is, and it's so strange to watch, isn't it? I mean, when you see the off-spinner bowling 3 overs in the power play, 3 overs back-to-back, we hear so much in modern T20 cricket that you don't want a bowler to bowl that many overs that the batters can line them up. Well, England, as I said earlier, they bowled all 6 overs with 2 bowlers who weren't even in their side until recently, which is weird. I mean, what next? Alistair Cook, Gary Ballance going to come back into the top 3? It was recherche beyond belief, but again, I mean, in part, it seems to me that it's the curse of Moeen Ali, isn't it? He's basically too good at both of his disciplines, and therefore is misunderstood in either of them, it seems to me. I'm delighted for him. I think he might have the right surfaces to do this. Look, it'll be different when he comes up against two right-handed openers. They've had two matches so far, and it's been a right and left-handed opener, but he's got them out in identical fashion. So there's some kind of a plan going on here that's working, allied with Wokes. And then, as you say, I mean, Tim Mills, some extraordinary pace, but also some brilliant slower balls. The last ball of the innings was probably the loveliest ball of the whole match, actually.
Well, he finishes with 3 wickets. There's a slower ball Yorker to finish. There's the shorter ball earlier in the over that was probably at 150 plus in kilometres an hour, which meant they were only ever going to get a chase worth 125, which in some respects England need a bat properly, but they didn't get it today. So Jason Roy in his 50th T20 International made 61. David Milan was there at the end playing a very David Milan innings alongside Johnny Bairstow. Butler made 18, but really they were in cruise control from the outset.
Well, they were. Bangladesh needed to take wickets early, and they did exactly what they thought was the right thing to do, which is to get their left-arm spinner on immediately, because if you crunch the numbers, you find out that Jason Roy can't hack it. Well, of course, cricketers are funny things. They don't actually take the database and then just give up. They sort of look at it and then go and work on it. So he's worked on it and he's got better at it, which is a bit unfortunate for Shakib. The first ball set the tone. It was short and wide, and Roy got away with a first ball boundary. Butler was very handy, charged down the wicket, smashed a 6 back over the bowler's head. It meant that England got off to a flyer, really, 9.5 and over in the first 4 overs when you only need 125. Meant that they were able to push it about a bit, and he played the perfect innings, didn't he? He got them off to the flyer, then pushed it around a bit, and then when he realised that there were about 40 runs left, let's have a big thrash now and improve our net run rate. It could not have been more perfect for England, except the thing you allude to, which is that we haven't seen England tested with the bat. We don't know what will happen when Stark, Cummings and Hazelwood get a couple of early wickets, or if they're batting first. Let's not forget, that's the other part of it. So that'll make for a very different game. I thought it was an unusual decision from Shakib. Athers at the toss thought he could understand it, but we've seen that England desperately love to chase. If you're playing against England and you are unfancied, then always, I think, do what they don't want you to do. I found it a bit baffling that Bangladesh went down that route, because it put a huge amount of pressure on their batters up top. But really, it was a perfect performance. I'd say, one thing I would say for people of a statistical bent, England have won by 70 balls, they've won by 35 balls. At this rate, to beat Australia, it'll have to be in a super over. Then they'll lose the next two by 35 and 70 balls, scrape into the semi-finals and lose with 105 balls to spare to Pakistan. So, I'm just putting that out there for England fans if they're getting a bit overconfident.
Dare to dream. So, as you say, their next opponent is Australia. They get a bit of a break, and they can probably live a little against Australia as well, because England's net run rate is going very nicely indeed. The second game today was between Scotland and Namibia, and what a start. Ruben Trumpelman. We may not have known a lot about the left-arm speedster before this competition, but boy, did we today. 3 wickets in the first over, a baffling scorecard after 1 over where there were 5 noughts on the side of the screen for Scotland. It did get better at different stages. Leask was able to whack 44, which got them up to 109. They weren't able to defend it. Namibia getting the job done with a couple of overs to spare, courtesy of Smith, who smited about 35 or thereabouts alongside David Weiser. They put on 46 for the 6th wicket after a little bit of a wobble, and that was enough to get them home. So Namibia win their first game of the Super 12s, and they're on a roll, Daniel, because to get to this stage they needed to win 3 games on the bounce, and here they are. Namibia, giant killers. I wouldn't quite say today was about giant killing, but they are currently sitting above India in the standings on that group, and that is absolutely not for nothing.
Yeah, take a screenshot of that if you're a Namibia fan. I'm not sure how long it'll last, but they're a remarkable side, aren't they? Because they've got with David Weiser and Erasmus and Smits. I love that batting power. I also love they've got kind of like 2 non-playing at 8 at 9, Piquet France and Lofty Eaton, who are there, I think, just because their names are so exotic. Decent fielders, but I think they bowled 1 over between them and were carded at 8 and 9 in the order. But in all seriousness, Trumpelman, he bowled a textbook first over, didn't he? And that's what can happen if you find yourself basically 2 for 3 after the first over, then it's pretty hard to come back from that. And Scotland did well. Well, not that well to post 109, but they did pretty well with the ball and pretty well in the field. Then it wasn't a disgraceful performance by any stretch of the imagination. They were just done by Dolph Lundgren lookalike, and who came absolutely hurtling in, and he got the ball to boomerang. I mean, one of those LBWs was an absolute peach of a delivery. It wasn't just a batter falling over. It was beautiful late swing at pace.
Yeah, well, they were 16 for 4 at one stage, Scotland. Jan Fralek got in there as well with 2 for 10 from his 4 overs, so effective and economical for the other main frontman of the Namibian attack. So 109 was what Scotland got to. I mentioned Leask before, making 44 and sticking the landing for Scotland and getting them to a vaguely credible total. Namibia weren't flying early on. Really, they were in no hurry at all. Williams early on there with Van Lingen, they were unable to really put the foot down in the first half, which meant when the wickets did fall, and they fell at 50, 61, 67, after 12.3 overs, they really did need a partnership, and that's where Wiese, with his experience, and JJ Smith, one of the 2 JJs in the competition, got together. And yeah, they've got the big hitting capacity, but they've also got the experience, which I think is so important for an associate nation on this big stage, having guys that have played a little bit, especially in the case of Wiese, who's been an international with South Africa before. He was instrumental in getting them through to this stage of this competition. So we only got 16 off 14, but it was at the exact right time. And yeah, Smith finished with 32 not out from 23 balls, and he sealed it with a 6. So in terms of where they sit in that group, Namibia have got some time off now. Scotland have got some time off now, and Namibia's next game, which I did write down, but they're playing Afghanistan on Sunday. Scotland have a week off before they play New Zealand, but I don't mind that matchup, Namibia, Afghanistan. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not getting ahead of ourselves here. Afghanistan played a textbook game against Scotland to start their competition off, but Namibia have the wind at their back right now.
They do, but I think what I have learned from watching all the qualifiers, I've commentated some of the qualifiers, I've watched them all, and so I've seen Namibia and Scotland. I've seen Scotland 5 times now and Namibia 4 times, and I think they should be very proud of the performances they put in. They're definitely a cut above associate nations in previous World Cups. But I do think that both those sides are going to struggle against the 4 full members. I guess they could get lucky with Afghanistan taking a particularly aggressive strategy. They could lose wickets early up against some very good left-arm pacers. And if that happened, Afghanistan could find themselves 12 for 3 or 20 for 4 or whatever. Then that would make the game look very different. But I would fear for Namibia's batters up against Rashid Khan, Mujib. I mean, there's some mystery spin there that. Look, David Wiese will know a little bit about Rashid Khan because he'll have played against him in the nets at Sussex plenty of times. But and I think David Wiese is a really, really important player for the whole of the Namibian setup, actually, to make them feel the confidence that's clearly coursing through their veins. But I think what I've taken from what I've seen so far is that this is going to be a group in which Namibia and Scotland are going to. We saw the game that Namibia were going to win today. Basically.
I tend to agree. Well, with Scotland as well, at one stage across the end of their previous game against Afghanistan and the first over today, they'd lost 13 for 34, which are fairly unflattering numbers. So, they were spun out by Afghanistan, and it was the left-arm seam of Trumpelman today. Daniel, let's progress to the Hall of Fame. Before doing so, I'll remind everybody that Woodstock Cricket make the best cricket bats in the world. Daniel, we've both had loads to do with them throughout the course of 2021. They came first and second in a blind testing over here in the UK, which gives you a sense of how they're thought of by people who know a lot about cricket. And crucially, you get the treatment, the one-to-one treatment. When you go up there to Nottingham, which you're doing soon, I'm doing in a couple of weeks as well, they will be there with us and making sure we get the right cricket bat, the right kit, and all at 20% off with the offer code TFW20 at woodstockcricket.co.uk.
It's magnificent. It's a personalised service as well, and I need that because there's a lot of catching up for me to do from my position of relative decay and senescence to one of barely competent batter. And I have been assured that basically I've got the wrong bat, and I believe it, actually. They check out the way you play, they get you to pick up bats and feel them, and then so you don't go in there and say, I want a £3 bat or a £2 10-ounce bat. You can say it if you like, But they'll give you a whole bunch, and you'll be amazed by the ones that work for you. It's a wonderful organisation. You know I feel deeply strongly about them, and I cannot wait to get kitted out, because next year is the year that I make a charge for it. At 52, it's not too late. Look at Darren Stevens.
Well, 52 was the age that Wilfred Rhodes played his final Test match. Let's not forget. Woodstockcricket.co.uk. Hall of Fame today. I'm a bit Scotland heavy. There was Craig Wallace having to dash down in the first over after 4 legal deliveries as the number 5, while Matthew Cross was watching up the other end and batted into the 14th over, I think it was. But in Wallace's case, that was almost living the nightmare of any cricketer, any club cricketer who can't get the pads on in time and gets timed out. But he was actually, and remembering in T20, you only get 90 seconds, not 3 minutes. So he had to have his wits about him. But he did get out there in the nick of time and cracked on accordingly. And the other point I want to make from Scotland and put in the Hall of Fame is that Mark Watt's figures in this competition read as follows: 1 for 19, 1 for 23, 1 for 23, 1 for 23, and today 1 for 22. In terms of the statistical deviation, another thing that we like on the final word on Nerd Pledge occasionally, that is good going. And I reckon that he might have enhanced his reputation to the extent to which the left-arm spinner gets to play on a few of these domestic T20 comps around the world after this. He's had a chance on the big stage here, and so far he's looking so consistent, lands it on a threatening bit, doesn't do much with it in the way of turn, but attacks the stumps, and it works in these conditions.
He's bowling against some very good batters, isn't he? So I wouldn't be surprised if he gets a Bangladesh Premier League contract, something like that. And that's what this is all about. It's about giving showcase opportunities to players so that they will only get better from doing that, and that will only make these associate nations better, because they'll come back having had more experience. Don't forget that Scotland have hardly played any international cricket for 500 days until really this tournament. So it's a pretty tough ask. The players themselves don't get anything like the same advantages that England have had. Being in those bubbles, they've been playing against each other, top quality practice. They've had plenty of cricket. That would be great to see. My Hall of Famers from today.
Yes, please.
Today was short of Hall of Fame activity, wasn't it? I think I was very amused by Bangladesh trying to gift England 3 run-outs in the space of about 5 minutes. There was an hilarious yes, no, wait, no, yes 3 times. Mamadullah was often at the crease when this was happening, and he's a captain, so that was rather amusing. Imagine the Benny Hill theme tune in the background. But I think in terms of class, but Adil Rashid's catch to get rid of, it was Shakib Al Hassan, I think, running back over his shoulder. Adil Rashid never does anything without making it spectacular. He either bats in a weird and quirky way, he bowls flamboyantly, or when taking a catch, he makes damn sure to set off for the moment, the diving moment, and make it all look spectacular and wonderful. It was a sort of a gasp out loud moment. If you actually watched the catch over and over again, you probably thought Adil's been a bit slow off the blocks there and said to make up for it. But it made for, I think that was a Hall of Fame contender, I'd say. Yes. So yeah, those are my 2 options.
No, they both work. I think the Adil Rashid is most appropriate, and that scorecard after 1 over, I took a screenshot of it and popped it on Twitter with because of the 2 wides, the score was 2 for 3, but all 5 players carded had 0 next to their name, which, I mean, as I said, cricket is having another normal day. All the normal days we get in our sport. Let's hope we have another normal day tomorrow when Australia play Sri Lanka. Just the 1 game tomorrow. I assume we're back off to Dubai Sports City, or I'm not entirely sure. What I do know, Daniel, is we will be back on the Final Word Daily. Thanks for your company throughout. Thank you for all the subscriptions on YouTube and the comments and all the rest of it. You can find all of our work in the usual places. And if you really like what we do, patreon.com/The Final Word. It has been the Final Word Daily, Day 5 of this World Cup. Adam Collins and Daniel Norcross. Good night for now.
Good night.